Welcome to another edition of Race Talk Live TV, produced at the Salina Media Connections studio, produced by David Cheveria of Flatlands Media with assistance from Dean Klenda and Aaron Carter. Tonight, dinner was provided by Karen Gebhardt of Kansas Secured Title. See them for all your real estate and escrow transactions. Tonight's guests are Jay Neal and Andy Templeton from BSB Manufacturing, co-host Bob Potts, and of course me, Bill Gritt. Welcome aboard, everybody. Glad to have you here. Bobby did a great job putting together this one.
Yeah, with the weather the way it was kind of shaky, but things thawed out really quick, and appreciate you guys making the trip.
Worked out well.
From Wellington. Yeah, you bet. I called your wife this morning, and are the guys still going to come? Yeah, I think they're going to try to make it.
I'll tell you what, it looked a little lifty about 10 o'clock.
You know,
it was kind of weird down there.
When I talked to her, she said that it was still kind of overcast and looked like it could still snow, but the sun was shining here, and it was starting to thaw. So
yeah, once it's sun
I knew
come
it'd
out,
get better.
Yeah,
Yep.
once sun come out, the roads got good. And
Yep.
You know, when I was a kid, I used to play in the snow all the time. Now, not so much.
no,
Wet,
I'm
cold.
telling you.
it kind of works that way, doesn't it?
It's nasty.
I mean, I had to force myself to go out and shovel this morning so I could get out. No.
Yeah, and it really makes you feel bad when you get on your phone and you're looking at guys are racing down in Texas and down in Florida, and yeah, we're slopping around in the
snow.
slush and the snow here. So
We
yeah,
just haven't had no snow for a while.
I know it. We've been pretty lucky.
I think this has been the wettest winter on record for us for a while, I think, really and truly.
Yeah.
And it sounds like we have more stuff coming in this weekend. I'll believe it when I see it, trust me. Let me tell you what, coming home last night was no fun. That was a trip. Jay, let's talk about BSB. That's why you're here. How long you been in existence and when did it start?
This is our 25th year. So
Really?
5 years.
It's only
Wow.
5 years, so it's gone by pretty quick, but it just keeps going, and so it's been a while,
Let's talk about your product line that you manufacture. Of course, behind you, and we'll talk about it in a minute, but I want to cover everything you have. Bird cages, shocks, springs, bars of all types. What else? What else do you have?
Well, I mean, pretty much the suspension stuff for modifieds and late models, and we started out really doing bird cages back in the day and components, J bars, pinion plates, that type of stuff, and we got into the shock market in about 2010, because I felt like, we were going through an era at that time where a lot of people were building stuff. Everybody had a machine somewhere, or a friend that had a machine. So you're seeing all this competition come aboard, and I thought, we need to kind of move into a different direction that everybody can't be in, so we started doing the shocks, and, I realized the shock deal was going to be pretty important, and I feel like we was a little ahead of the game, so.
Jay, when I first started racing, I ran shocks from Speedway Motors. Pro shock absorbers is what I had on that pro stock I raced. They were like $30 a piece.
Wow,
Yeah.
what a change! Huh?
Yeah.
I mean, look, but wait, you got what you paid for. They were, they weren't adjustable. They weren't even rebuildable. They were pretty much throwaway, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. No, they weren't rebuildable. You're
Yeah.
right.
And now, we have these.
And what's bad is the technology has come a long ways. I mean, because we really started out with the Monroe type shock, so the technology's come a long ways, but the advancement of learning and the technology has not really it's not as grown as fast as it should. I mean, there's not a educational system for a shock. So, I mean, it's a learn as you go type deal. And there's no real standards.
And I think, and you can correct me on this, please, and please do, every driver wants a little different feel.
And, really you are, we're going to try to complement the car.
Right.
And that's going to be based on, what you're doing to it and what you want. So, I mean, really, it's easier to shock a car for the driver than it is to change the driver. You know, a lot of times, you know, if you can work with somebody, it's a little more open-minded, doesn't get offended or something. You know, there's things, you know, I tell people, I said, this is a sport, okay? It's a sport we participate in that we don't have a coach. We don't have practice. We don't have guidance. No one's taught us how to race. You know, most of us got in a race car, and the second or third time we were in a race. You know, and we learned from the guy in front of us. You know, and maybe somebody got mad at us because we kept wrecking them, and they come over and said, "Well, quit doing that," you know. So we quit doing it. You know, but we really didn't know what we were doing or why we were doing it. We were just doing it.
Been there.
You
I'm
know,
telling
so we learned a lot of bad habits over the years. You know, and then it kind of comes with the shock technology. It's not really, you know, it ain't like we're going to share it. No one's sharing information. You know, so it's a slow growth process. Now
Yep.
it kind of has exploded because there's so many people out there. But then we hear things, you know, or guys say, "Oh, I did this and I loved it." Well, it really doesn't work, you know, and they really didn't love it. You know, after they gave it a little time, they realized, you know, it wasn't so good.
Didn't work.
You know.
But they're not going to tell anybody they changed
Yeah.
it back.
Yeah.
And sometimes that slows the process up, you know, I mean, because we have a tendency to want to go down that path too quick.
Racers are, I'm sorry guys, I am one, I was one. Racers are inherently whiny. They're never happy. I mean, it's a true
That's for
story.
sure.
It's
Well,
true.
and Kyle Busch kind of said that one time. He said, "Hey, it's my job to be unhappy. It's your job to fix it." You know?
I never found anybody, well. But, I mean, I think you and I have had some very long discussions. And I mean, shocks, bird cages, J-bars, all this stuff, bar angles, bar lengths. I used to run a brake floater, and I'd actually put the brake, I put it on a floater, and I put it so that it applied pressure to the chassis. That didn't work so good for me either. But, I mean, all this stuff, if a guy calls you, how do you determine where to start?
Well, we'll kind of start with, you know, what class he's in. We'll start with what kind of car he's got. You know, so if it's a modified B mod, you know, then we'll determine what series he's in. UMP, IMCA, USRA, you know, because of the rule packages.
Right.
Okay, so we're going to be dictated a little bit to the rules. And then we're going to go into what motor package he's got. You know, is it a crate, an open? How big of open is it? You know, I mean, so, you know, the crates rules change how we do things.
Sure.
You know, so, and the crate has changed how we race. And the things that me and you did back in the day are really not that good for a crate motor program. So we'll figure out what they got for a car. And then, you know, we'll start talking about what they did, like last year with the car. You know, how did that car race? You know, was it tight? Was it loose? You know, is it tight on entry, tight in the center? You know, loose on exit?
And then, Bobby, when you ask Jay that question or try to talk about tight, and it's, yes, get the catalog out.
Yeah,
And then he'll go over corner entry and where you need to be off the gas and where you need to be on the gas. He's extremely knowledgeable, and he'll sit down with you and talk to you about all of this.
it's a pretty helpful little deal you got in the back of your catalog
You
here,
know,
you know,
and- yeah,
with
and
the numbers.
Right here.
Yeah.
That.
I try
If
to
I
get,
could show that on camera.
I try to get people to, you know, I represent it like a clock, okay, with 3 o'clock being entry, center, corner being 12 o'clock. Because guys will go like, "Oh, I don't drive in, I drive in deep, I don't drive in deep," you know, and they're all driving in clear to 1 o'clock, you know, and it's like, yeah, that's pretty deep, you know. But, so, you know, trying to give it a reference, you know, so a guy has something to go off of. And we're doing some stuff more, you know, on the driver's side, with setup notes and you know, trying to have a little more unification on track. You know, this is entry. You know, just because you don't turn the car there doesn't mean it's not. You know,
Right.
but and track conditions. You know, how tight are you? You know, are you tight in the front? You tight in the rear? You know, so kind of. You know, it's like side bite. I don't even know if we even know what that means anymore
I know.
because everybody uses it
Yeah.
for a different term. I mean, it's side bite this, side bite that, you know, and I'm like, you know, so I mean, and there was a time when it was like really important. Well, not so much with the crate, you know,
It's
and
not.
yeah, it's we don't need it, you know, and
You know, as many chassis builders as there's getting to be now, and it seems like pretty much all the cars are pretty much alike anymore. I think a lot of it's coming down to being the spring and the shock package that you got is, you know, really important.
yeah,
get the car to go.
it is really important, and I feel like if we can, you know, along with that and fix a couple of mistakes we make as drivers, that because if you look at some of the guys that are really good in all divisions or in all series, you know, they kind of share one common thing, and their entry is really good, you know, and if we can kind of fix some of that, I think it changes the way, you know, it changes the results.
And it, you know, also the racing has got so tight that you're looking for every little small advantage you can find. Like, well, for instance, we were at the Salina Speedway banquet the other night, and Brian and Neil and Danny Morrison were talking how, you know, close the racing is now compared to back 10 years ago. You know, you used to be able to drive away from people.
All right.
And, or if somebody gets away, you know, you could run them down and catch them. And now it like takes a
Yeah.
long time to catch somebody if they get out there, you know, get ahead of you.
I think you know, like in the stock car division, there's 5-10 thousandths of a second separating the top three on a given night. You know, I'd have to get it back up, but that's what we were chasing. You know,
Yeah.
Ryan's team. That's what we were looking for. You know, and that's tight.
And you know, we did timing out there for about 4 or 5 years, you know, GPS timing, and I would have never thought that them guys were that consistent. You know, they turned consistent laps. You know, and I was really kind of, you know, when a guy turns 20 laps, 3/10 to a half second of each other, that's pretty good.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, it's like,
That's
yeah, I
pretty
wouldn't
good.
have thought, you know.
Yeah.
That's pretty
I'm gonna
good.
borrow this from you.
Yeah.
I don't know if they can zoom in on this thing or not in front of my pretty smiling face, but folks, if you don't have one of these, you need to get one because of this page clear at the back. This will help out a driver and a team tremendously just by looking at this. And it's odd that you put that in there, but I like it.
Well, I don't know if it's odd, is it?
Well,
I mean, you know, here's
are you
another
giving away
thing.
your secrets?
No. You know, I felt like I kind of grew up that way, you know, I studied everything. Okay, so here's how I got involved in shocks. You know, I went on the internet and I looked at everything and read everything I could find. And when you couldn't find anything, I started searching patents because I figured I could understand how you did it and I could maybe apply that to what we're doing, you know, so, man, I printed out a lot of patents, you know, trying
Okay.
to figure out what was going on, you know. But,
Let's back up just a little further. What got you involved in this?
well, we were mechanicing at home, you know, in the garage, and really this kid come over and asked us to cut up a race car for the packing house down there at Wellington, and they would pay us to cut it up. You know, so I mean, this is like gold mine, you know, they're gonna pay us to do this, you know, so, you know, we cut them up, you know, and
Cut them up for scrap?
yeah, we cut them up for scrap, you know, they were all street stock car type deals, and actually we cut the bodies off of them so they could put a new body on them, and then I ended up putting the bodies on them, and they had 3 or 4 stock cars. Well, the kid down the street drag raced, and he thought we were all into circle track, so he was trying to start a rivalry there that, you know, the circle track guys were no good, and you know, so we kind of had that little deal going on, and then I just started driving the truck for him, you know, pulling car to the racetrack, and we had a late model, and the driver died that season, had a heart attack and died, and they had a high-dollar motor that got freshened up and was sitting in the shop, and a mouse moved into it over the winter.
No.
Oh, no.
Yeah, and he ruined a couple cylinders, you know.
Okay.
Well, this was probably in the late 90s, sometime in that 92, 95, somewhere, I can't really remember, but, you know, they spent 10 grand on a refreshing. because when he hit the wall at over RPM, so he died on the racetrack.
Okay.
This guy died on the racetrack, and so they spent all that money, and then that mouse got in there. So, you know, I feel like I'm always good at solving the problem.
Sure.
You know, find the problem, solve the problem, and we built a close-up kit. Okay, and I wrote letters to everybody that sold parts, you know, trying to get them to buy this deal, and finally Speedway Motors bought it, and you know, we were making 800 of them a month, I think,
That's
kits.
That's a
and,
few.
Yeah, and I went out and bought a CNC machine. I didn't know how to run it. I didn't know how to program it. I didn't even know what to do with it.
But you were about to figure it out, weren't you?
Oh, boy.
So, and luckily enough, it was in the building that I owned, and I never even had to move it out. I just kind of took over it and took over the building, and so, I mean, the bird cage is the same way. I mean, they were steel on steel, really rough pieces
Ooh.
back in the day, you know. And
I think my early one, the first bird cage I ever had, Jay, had that nylon sleeve in it.
yeah, and that was even probably better than
Steel on steel.
well what the modified guys. So we had I don't know if we can mention chassis brands, but
Sure.
we had a Hoffman car, and it was actually a pretty good car. But when you run the top bolt in the hole here,
Go ahead and grab that bird cage out of here
when,
so we
when
can
you
talk
run
about it.
that when you run that bolt in that hole there, it was just a single shear. The bolt went on an angle like this, you know. And we were trying to tell him like, you know, not even the hole's even straight, you know. But that's the way the modified guys. That's what they had,
Yeah.
you know. And we really didn't invent nothing new. We just come along with something that was, you know, had a little pride in it. You know, just something proud to own, and it was clean. And I kind of always had that. If you're going to do it, you might as well just do it right, because doing it and doing it right don't take that much more time. So.
Right. You know, and I mean, these things, bird cages, they've evolved from, holy cow, like you said, steel on steel. I had the aluminum one in the first bird cage car I ever had. But I think we can thank our friends in the drag racing world for the 4-bar setup and the bird cage setup, because I think that's where we stole that from. The dirt racers did, because they had it before we did.
Yeah, probably so.
Is
Yeah.
this all made in-house?
Yep.
All of
Yep.
it?
All of it?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, we, you know, we were like everybody else. There was somebody selling bearings in the country, you know, selling bearings, and like a lot of stuff in racing, for some reason, he decided one day that he didn't want to sell us bearings no more. So we had to go get our own bearing manufacturer, which no one in the United States builds bearings.
Wow.
You know, so you have to go overseas to get a bearing, and you know, so that part, of course, rod ends and bearings and all that stuff comes from overseas nowadays.
Sure.
You know, and with some of the stuff they got going on is changing the way you can buy things. So, yeah, we make it all in house, and
I think, Andy, you're pretty much a big part of these, aren't you? Don't you run the machine that
Yep.
do you build these?
Just about every part on there I've had something to do with. I'm one of the 4 machinists there at the shop.
How long you been there?
Almost 3 years now.
3 years? I
Travel with Jay to shows and stuff.
Quite a bit.
Kind of stepped up your program. Guys, for the average person watching this thing back home, every racer is going to know what a bird cage is. But either one of you, I don't care, one of you, explain to the folks what that is and what it does.
okay. Well, you know, it goes over the rear end axle, so it's on your axle, and then you got a lower rod and an upper rod that make the 4-length that hook to the chassis. And because of the configuration, you know, our left rear hikes and our right rear index is back.
Yeah.
And so one index is forward, the other index is back, gives us rear steer. Okay, without rear steer in the cars, we're probably way too tight. You know, I mean, we can't get the car around the corner. So we need some rear steer in the car. You know, like in an IMCA deal, we really don't have enough stagger on them tires.
I explain this a lot of times to some new people that I'm talking to. It's a lot like a monster truck. I mean, you know, the front
Yeah.
axle's turning and the rear
Rear.
axle's turning, so you're helping the car. You know, that's the only way a monster truck can get around in a tight area is to have the rear end
Rear end
steer.
steer.
So
Oh,
it's a lot.
And so the
a lot
object
like
is
it is.
the object is to pull that left rear tire forward so that the car will go around the corner and it pushes the right one back.
Right.
You know, and we're trying to do all that. You know, in an open motor program, it was different. So we're trying to do all that in a car that gets up and down all the time. Every corner,
Right.
entry, we got to get down.
And now we're trying to do it with no horsepower.
Yeah, so now we're trying to keep it in posture. So really, in an open motor program, the bearings and the function of the bearings and this piece functioning properly is really, really critical. In a crate car, it can be a lot less critical, you know, because the car doesn't have the power to get up and down. It doesn't have the acceleration to get up and down. So if you leave it in posture, it'll get around the racetrack faster, you know, so
I think momentum's a big
Yeah,
word in crate
it is.
racing.
you know, and what we,
Even in late model, even in crate late model racing, momentum's
oh yeah,
Yeah.
if you ain't momentum, you ain't gonna win.
Yeah.
And you know, I know there's gonna be some people out there watching this that might offend a little, but you know, our late model racing here, our crate late model racing here is pretty good, but we still got a little to learn. So I mean, we're not as fast as we can be because we ain't mastered momentum. So so last year, you know, one of our locals, you know, towards the end of the year was turning a lot faster laps than some of the heroes, you know, and that's momentum, you know. I mean, you know, I'm not going to say anything that what didn't happen or wasn't true. I mean, he was turning faster laps and he was beating them, you know, and you know, they got to figure it out, and that's what, you know, them guys do, you know. I mean, guys have been around it for a while, you know, that, you know, them old time late model guys, you know, they didn't race crates, they didn't race momentum.
Right.
You know, they've always raced big horsepower, big motors,
Yeah.
way too much power.
Listen, racers believe this, okay? If some is good, more is better. Too much ought to be just right.
That's
I'm telling you, that's how it works. When I first started with the late model thing, I had 430 cubic inches, 600 horsepower, 600 foot-pounds of torque. The thing was a monster as far as that goes. Crates don't have anywhere near that.
No, but when we first started crate racing out here, I thought it was a lot more exciting because you'd see a 400 horse crate go by an 800 horse motor, and you still couldn't figure out why.
How it
was
happened,
like,
yeah.
you know, but it seemed, you know, aggressive. You know, they looked, you know, aggressive. You know, and I don't know that it looks quite like that, but the crate racing deal, I mean, it's different. I mean, it's momentum, and we're lacking. I think even in the modifieds, we lack. There's a lot of speed left out there that we haven't discovered yet.
You know,
Go
we
ahead.
talk a lot about the crate motor in the late models and the modifieds. Do you feel that's kind of saved the series as far as keeping the cars around, or what do you feel about
I
that?
think in the late model, in our area, it definitely has, yeah. So I mean, I think it's been real good for the late model guys, and I don't think it's bad for the modifieds, because you look at the cost of racing and the cost of the motor, you know, an open motor program, and for a modified, we'll say, you know, and you're spending, say you're spending 12 grand on a modified motor, you know, so other guys are spending 16, 18,
Yeah.
maybe 22, and they're going out and competing for 450, 500 bucks.
Yeah.
You know, so that relationship don't seem to jive real well, you know. Likewise, you know, the late model guys are spending more and racing for a little more, but it don't jive. But so the crate deal, I mean, it kind of marries that gap up a lot, you know, so I think it makes sense. Now, what I really wish they'd have done or would do, because I want to be on the same playing field as the guy next to me, okay? So if I go do my homework, I'm going to be better than him. And if I can't run him down, you know, if he can go out and on a restart and get 10 car length lead on me when we're all supposed to be same motors,
Yeah.
I struggle with that a little. So I know you know, I know people think, oh, we're all racing on the same thing. I don't know. I don't know.
Might be
'Cause,
some out there that are a little different.
yeah, I'm afraid there is.
Well, let's get back to this bird cage for a minute before we set it back there on its display shelf. But look at all those adjustments. Every hole there is an adjustment hole. How quick can a guy dial himself out
Instantly.
by moving one of those the wrong
Instantly.
way?
Real quick.
Instantly. You know, one of the things I think as racers we like is we want options. You know, and the more options we have, the better opportunity we have, we think. Okay? And you'll see, well, that hole right there is a fine example. We've never had a hole in a bird cage above the 4.5 up. Okay, we do one customer on his right rear, and some of his people run it, but it didn't get put in for a specific reason. It got put in so there was a hole there. Okay,
I was going to say, if I order my next set, Andy, you could build one without that hole or that hole or that hole. You just put one hole.
So less machining time.
You know, so I seen a guy with 4-link plates, you know, and he started selling them, and he went from 40 holes in a 4-link plate to 120. You know? And it's like, you know, he said I couldn't sell the 40-hole ones. You know, we don't really need all that. We don't, but we want it. We want it. Bigger, better, faster. Well, yeah, the guys, you know, yeah, a lot of them guys, you know, Jimmy Mars was always like, I want one hole here and one hole here.
Yeah.
But it was hard to sell.
Right.
You know, so you had to give him 2 holes here and 2 holes there.
Yeah.
You know, but so no, you know, I mean, like some of this stuff like this bird cage has got the high hole in it. Okay, and then we added a brake flutter hole here. So this wouldn't have applied years ago, but it's coming into play because of the crate motor.
Really?
Yeah, so the crate motor, you know, is dictating some of this, putting a car in posture. So when Davenport started driving his car, you know, with the device on it, and it never got out of posture, people started trying to get, you know, I like that. Whatever it is that makes us think, you know, that we're trying to do something different. I like that. But, you know, this go-kart posture, you know, we go to the racetrack to watch racing. And there's a difference between that and cars going around.
Yeah.
And when you're at a track, I don't care what class it is, or NASCAR, go-karts, and they're racing each other, and you get excited inside, that's why we go. And we need that weekly. You know, and that's the only part of the crate deal that scares me.
You know, I bought a car from a guy, and I didn't ask him all the questions that I should have. And I put it together, and I struggled with it. And I struggled. And you and I talked a few times, too. I couldn't get it up on the bar. I couldn't get it into posture. Wouldn't do it. Just would not. I couldn't do it. Driving a crate engine, I couldn't figure it out. I found out you can make a car flop over on its nose, but it doesn't do you any good.
Doesn't go nowhere. No. I know. I used to. Former employee one time, and I was like, watch that car right there. And I said, I don't know that I've ever seen a car get around the racetrack. It didn't look better than that. I said, that thing's pretty. It looks great, you know. And we're watching it going around. His timing looked good. His car was up. It's going around the corner real nice. And he goes, I know, but what's wrong with it? Because he's like 12th, you know. Well, you know, so I thought about that too. You know, I thought, well, you know, he didn't have no speed. You know, you can make a car get on the right rear and make the left front come up. You can make all that happen, and it's just all mechanical, and it doesn't give you no traction. Or
Doesn't go forward.
Not at all, you know. But you can also have a really balanced race car that just ain't fast.
I wouldn't go either.
Yeah, it just won't go forward, you know. But that car's at least headed in the right direction.
Yeah.
I mean, you got something to work with, but yeah, so.
Would you tell us, and I'm not trying to put you on the spot, what is a bird cage like that average cost?
Oh, it's $425. I think. Huh? $465. It went up. Yeah.
Andy knows.
Yeah.
He knows how many hours he's got in too.
It's $465. You
But
know,
this thing is all unboltable. Is it all rebuildable?
Yeah. And we actually do that for customers.
So
Yeah.
if you tear up one of these, you've tore something up though.
Yeah. It's 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 a pretty stout piece. It really is. And
Average maintenance on that year to year? What do you do?
It definitely needs. I don't care what you're racing. If it's got bearings in it, you got a bird cage with bearings. You better be putting bearings in every single year.
Because your competition's going to be doing
If
it.
you don't care about how good you finish or how much money you make at the pay window, then this $80 right here is going to cost you a ton. And for most of us, it's not about the little bit of money you're going to win, even though it's nice to have. It's about winning. It's about doing good.
Are we doing this for the money or are we doing it for the win?
We're doing it for the wins. Yeah, we're doing it. I mean, when you can make money, it just makes it better,
Yeah.
When you go racing, you're under that, I can't race hard because I can't tear up stuff because I can't afford to fix it.
I was there once.
Yeah, it's
That hurts.
yeah, it's
you
not-
don't
it's
you don't
not
race
fun.
very hard
No,
when you're in
you
that
don't race
situation.
good.
You don't race.
No, and when you go to race to win, I like to think there are two people out there. There's a guy that goes to race to win, and there's a guy that goes to race to have fun. And it took me a long time to figure that out because I thought we went to win. I thought unfortunately for me, when I go to the track, it's still a job.
Sure.
So I didn't think anybody went there for fun, but I mean, it was work, but
Folks.
it was what we enjoy, but some people do, they don't really care how they finish, and it shows because they don't really improve,
Yeah.
you know.
Folks, you're watching Race Talk Live TV. It's produced at the Salina Media Connection studio. It is produced by David Cheveria of Flatlands Media with assistance from Dean Klenda and Aaron Carter. Again tonight, pizza was provided by Karen Gebhardt over at Kansas Secure Title for all of your real estate and escrow transactions. And we are continuing with Jay Neal and Andy Templeton from BSB Manufacturing. Haven't gotten Andy to talk a whole lot tonight,
No,
though.
Andy hadn't.
I'm kind of quiet.
I got. I know you were on you come down last summer and was on the radio show.
Yep.
And your son was just getting into the go-kart thing. Did you get to do much racing this summer?
Yeah, we did a
How'd it
little
go?
bit. Yeah, raced over in Winfield and raced to Wellington.
Okay. Got any wins?
Yeah.
Did he?
Let's
Good.
put the
See.
birdcage back there on the stand for now.
Has he been racing a while, or was this his first
That
summer?
was his
or-
first season.
summer.
Yeah.
And he got a couple wins. That's good. You finding out that them go-karts are a lot of work?
Yeah, they were a lot of work. A big car has a lot of work. It takes a lot of maintenance, but those little carts, the tires
The tires are
tires
crazy,
are
aren't they?
endless.
That is the thing on the go-karts is
What do you do? What do you do to the tires on your go-kart?
Well, you gotta prep them. You gotta go out there in the morning. You gotta put prep on them in the morning, come home at lunch and put prep on them in the evening. You put prep on them. It starts on Monday, goes all the way through Saturday. You just go. And you take Sunday, you're just like, oh, okay, break. And then Monday morning comes along, and there you go again.
and then
Sounds
come
like a real
day,
race car.
And then come race day,
Yeah.
get it, come off the track, got to clean them.
Clean them,
And do
prep
it
them
all
again,
over
wait
again.
for that perfect moment right before you go on the track. Perfect air temperature, stagger. Everything's got to be just right. It's a lot of work, but it is fun.
Did they get how old is your boy?
13.
13. Did they get a lot of karts in his class then?
Well, for Wellington, they just started his class, so it was kind of low number. Winfield had a decent number. It was about a half dozen or so for his class.
Okay.
So,
The reason I'm asking is, we started the little track here in Salina,
yeah.
and the Jackson Fuller Memorial Speedway is what it's called. And we were getting 5 or 6 in that particular class, so I was kind of curious on how many you guys were getting. So
Yeah.
I went out and helped them on Sundays when they raced. I was the corner flag, but I had a lot of fun. Enjoyed watching the kids being right down there on the track. You can see their faces.
Yeah.
It's cool being able to look right in there.
Plus,
face shields
you're a
and watching
glutton.
their
You're
faces.
a glutton for punishment too. That's the other part of that. It's hot out there on Sunday
It was
afternoon.
pretty warm, but anyway,
It's
we had
kind
a
of
good time.
amazing, though, how well some of them kids can do. And you
Oh,
look at
yeah.
them, they take their helmet off, and you look at them, and you're like,
Yep.
yeah, no,
And you can walk through the pits and you can pick the ones. A lot of them get out of their cart and they go play with their friends or something. But
Yeah.
there's some that are out. They're getting the tire cleaner out, and yeah, there's some of them that really get into it. It's cool to watch.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's a lot of work, but that's a, that's a good deal. You know, a lot of people always look at it. I seen that deal. You know, guys like, I don't spend money on racing. I spend money on time with my kid. You know, so racing teaches you. I think it teaches you things you can't learn. You know, really. I mean, it's a problem-solving
Yep.
environment. You solve the problem, and really, I mean, life's the same thing. You know, it's just a series of problems that you need to solve. You know,
Solve 'em, yep.
and so, I mean, I would have loved, to spend time with my dad like that. You know, but when you're a kid, maybe you don't think that way. You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think it would have been, a cool way to spend a Saturday night. You know.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, I think family, the kids have, gotten to be a big part of, like racing. Kids are allowed, it used to be kids couldn't go in the pits.
Right.
And now they've started allowing kids to go in the pit area, and there's a lot of kids down there that, that get into it and help dads
Scraping
or
mud,
brothers.
and rolling tires around.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Learning the whole deal. And
Let's face
it's
it.
good.
I mean, we're at the racetrack Friday night, Saturday night, 4 hours, we hope. You're in the race car. An average A feature is actually 20 minutes.
Not very long.
20 minutes, if you're on the throttle and not a lot of problems. Heat race is what, 5, And you spend hours upon hours upon hours in the shop, and hopefully your family's around while you're doing that, because it's just, the actual time in the seat, it's just not that long for the amount of work you put into it.
When we was racing, we had 5 cars, and I spent 40 hours a week working on
Sure.
them, and it was kind of a trade-off because I didn't pay for nothing. I mean, nothing.
You
Pit
were part
pass.
of the Wellington meet
Yeah,
guys.
Wellington Quality Meat, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
remember
we
that.
didn't pay for, I didn't pay pit pass, fuel. He bought my fire suit, he bought my helmet. I didn't pay for nothing, but I worked 40 hours a week on them cars, and my wife asked me, she's like, is 20 minutes a payoff for 40 hours? I was like, yeah.
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 It's the best
I don't
20
even know
minutes
how you
out
could
there.
ask,
Yeah.
Yeah, it was the funnest.
Yeah, it's Ted Martin, when I first got into the late model, Ted Martin told me, he says, something you need to remember when every time you get in that race car, and it's pretty basic, breathe.
Yeah.
Because I was getting to where I was holding my breath. I mean, it was a wild time. It was a blast. But
I tell you, the most fun we ever had one time out here at Wichita, he put all the modifieds, all the stock cars, and all the thumpers out there on the track at one time. And they had a day sprint car show there. That thing was rubbered up. And I mean, we went, 15 laps. I mean, you could just go boom and touch somebody next to you.
Yep.
And you're going down the straightaway and you're looking at the car next to you. And I mean, you just want to reach out and touch it, And nobody hit nobody.
Yep.
And I mean, I can still, it's been a long time ago, and I remember that. I thought that was the most fun I had in a race car.
Oh.
It really is a blast, but yeah.
So what made you get out?
I
What
got
made you
married.
quit?
Got
Oh, you
married.
got married?
I got married. Well, I got spoiled because when it was my money, it was like, whoo,
Yeah.
that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
But, I wished I wouldn't have never quit. Because it's different on this side, than being a racer. I mean, the racers, there's respect for them, amongst other guys, the fans. For guys like us or pit people, I don't feel like it's there, I mean, you've been on that side,
Yep.
And it's, you are very active in local racing and racing in this area, so, I mean, everybody knows you guys, Did you drove back in the day? No?
Never raced.
So, I mean, I mean, we didn't race enough to have anybody respect us, but I've done this long enough, it's just, there ain't no Hall of Fame for what me and you do, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and this show and the talk show that Bobby and I both do was started to kind of bring the drivers closer to the fans because I felt like there was a gap there, you know? And in this day and age, that gap may not be there as wide, but we fight that social media negativity stuff, you know, and we try so hard to stay positive. And that's what we want to produce. And that's, you know, I think we all at this table and in this room tonight share a passion for racing.
Absolutely.
You know, and it's not, we're beyond the stages of kicking the glass out of the car and throwing in a set of belts and putting a roll bar in there. There's more,
Right.
there's more math, there's more technology in these race cars today than you could ever imagine.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's gotten
I-
a little crazy.
I kind of enjoy my dad doesn't really come to the races that much anymore, but we stay in touch a lot, and I kind of keep him up on as far as the chassis stuff of it, you know, part of it goes, and he a lot of times ends up scratching his head going, you did what? You know, we didn't ever do that. Well, it's crazy how stuff has changed so much from, back then.
I think the first car I ever drove, Bob, Jay, Andy, I think the first car I ever really drove was a leaf spring car. We're so far from those
Oh,
now.
yeah.
You know, and they say it's all, revolving in circles, and we're going to be back on leaf spring cars, but
God, I don't think so.
Yeah, you
next
ought to
year.
see.
What? At least at the Dome?
I was going to say, I kind of hope not, but
Yeah, you ought to see our shop out there. Yeah, we don't throw nothing away because 5 or 10 years down the
Yeah.
road, we're going to be putting it back on again.
I don't know if it's my age, but it amazes me when these young guys find something and they're like, oh, this is the greatest thing ever. And we're like, it's a clamp, you know, it's a clamp bracket, dude. Calm down. You know, I mean, I know it's new for them, but
Yeah.
yeah, we've done it before, you know, but. So, yeah, sometimes I'd like to see, that have a little more organization, to where, that's why I try to push our guys to work as a team, and try to move forward and not, let's quit going in that circle, let's work on our cars and move them forward, make them faster, understand what we're doing, what we're not doing, and try to get it, it's kind of like that shock right there.
Yep.
It's new technology, and
Okay, let's talk. What's this shock cost? Now, I'm not beating you up.
Well,
there's a reason I'm asking you the cost.
Now, okay, so the base shock is $300
Okay.
racer. Then there's just a ton of options,
Tell me about this
Now,
shock.
that shock right there is it's a twin tube, so it's a dual zone twin tube gas shock, okay? So you can have multiple bleed zones in that shock.
Twin tube. What do you mean by that?
Well, unlike an oil shock,
Okay.
there are an inner tube and an outer tube,
Okay.
And that technology has come up through, weirdest thing, bicycles.
Really?
Yeah. So in like a mountain bike, the shock on there is, $800 to $1,000.
Okay.
Okay.
They don't think twice about that cost.
They don't bat an eye. And when Olin's come out with that, they call it a double barrel. Okay. When they come out with that deal, and they had it for a few years, they stepped it up, and they only sold it to previous champions. So there's only 800 previous champions that could qualify to own that shock, and I think at that point it's about $1,200, $1,500, and they wasn't messing around. But this is, we have to have a balanced race car. So we're going to have turn or drive, and we're going to have so much of one versus the other.
Okay.
So if we got a lot of turn, we're going to lack drive. If we got a lot of drive, we're going to lack turn.
Okay.
Okay, so a car that's really going to have a lot of speed in it is going to have just enough turn in it to make it get around the racetrack. Any more doesn't make it faster, makes it easier to drive. So we've never been able to add rebound to a shock in excess without hurting the car. mainly because most drivers want drive. Okay, they don't want to give up their forward drive. Okay, and we're not that schooled on driving momentum. Okay, this shock allows you to have ton of rebound, and it's going to give it up on the racetrack, and you're going to have drive.
Really?
Yeah, so you can have both, you know, kind of have your cake and eat it too, but you can have both. So it's got dual zone of, you know, bleed in it. So it has a no bleed zone, which creates a lot of rebound, and a bleed zone, which creates a lot of drive. And we can adjust the height of that zone by where we put the bleed hole in the inner tube. Okay, so the downfall to it is it good for racing? You know, is it good for racing?
Well, here's the problem. Why do you ask that question? Because if you don't do it, somebody else is going
that's
to.
right. That's right. Now that's the problem.
Yeah, because if
that's-
you don't
that's what
do it-
hurts our sport. Because
Right.
that's-
Somebody will do it.
Yeah, that's right. And it's not about the sport. It's about selling something. Okay, so I'm in the business of selling stuff. That's my problem. I want to win races.
Right.
Okay, more than I want to sell somebody something. Okay, just because I can sell it and you think you need it, you know, so we could be selling this right now like wildfire, because this is a good piece, okay, and we're selling them.
So what's the advantage of calling Jay up from BSB Manufacturing at your phone number? Go ahead and tell them what your phone number is.
620-326-3152.
What's the advantage of buying this from you?
Well, in a normal shock, not this piece, okay? So in a normal shock, it's the service, okay? Because in that shock, there's a piston, a wear band, a divider. There ain't nothing different in normal shock that is in any competitors, okay? Find the problem, fix the problem. There's issues that are in them shocks, and that's all we did, fix the problems, okay? So I feel like we got a shock that, you know, it's a honed tube. Okay, it's treated on the inside, pregnated wear band. Okay, so it don't bypass fluid. Okay, so when you put it on, it's the same all season long. It don't fade on.
It don't fade up, it don't give up
fade on
during the race?
Not during the race, not during the year.
Okay,
Okay, so every shock out there gives up on you from day 1 to day 30.
sure.
So some worse than others, okay? Very few people hone their stuff. Okay, so there's another process that's a lot cheaper. Okay, I didn't know that, you know, so I thought everybody honed their stuff, you know, so I mean, do it right. I didn't know you could cheat it. That's what we do. We're cheating, you know, everybody's cheating their stuff to get the cost down so they can make more money. Okay, well, that is probably, I mean, you don't find that kind of quality in a shock. It's just, you do, but they're twice the money.
At what point, so something happens to this shock, call up Jay, call up BSB, and 9 times out of 10 it can be fixed or rebuilt. Is that correct?
That's right.
Does it ever become junk
Oh, I mean,
if you wreck it and you tear it
I
up?
have a customer that's defiled that, yeah. He's picked up every broken shock in the country. He runs a racetrack. He's picking up every broken shock there and sends it back because he knows it can get fixed.
Okay.
You know, now is it the best thing in the world to do? Sometimes not for me, you know, because I'm going to fix them,
Right.
you know, and you know, in the kind of the way we do things, you know, there's a point that I can only charge so much, you know, and after that I kind of started eating it. So, yeah, sometimes it's not the best thing in the world for me, you know, but you can fix it. You can fix it and this is the problem with this spec shock. You know, from a sales point, a manufacturer, I'm all for a spec shock. You know why? Because you're going to buy a lot more of them,
Right.
and we don't have to fix them.
Right.
So we don't have to mess with all that dirty junk, you know, that gets sent to us. You just have to buy another new one, okay? Is that cost effective? No, it's not. Is it gonna race good? No, it's not, because they're gonna sell you junk. It's not gonna race good, okay?
And somewhere he's going to figure it out.
And when somebody figures out how to get into it, they're going to have a huge advantage over the other guys.
Yeah.
That's the problem. Crate Motor shows that. Okay, the cost of, fixing that, the cost of ownership, it's not that bad, and it's the lack of knowledge that is what our problem is. It's not the shock. Now, there is a problem because we got too many shot guys. There's too many shot guys out there. There's too many guys out there putting a sticker on something, charging you a lot of money, and I've got guys doing that, and it makes me mad because we've won the Neesmith Street Stock points 3 times, and all 3 with a sticker on our product. Okay, one of them cats was selling them shocks for double retail price.
Really?
Yeah, and he ain't having that much problem selling them, and I'm sitting here thinking he's making 3 times the money I am. He ain't doing nothing. I'm doing it all. That's the problem with shocks. Okay, it's real easy to sell you a dream in that tube.
Sure.
And it's real easy to do. And it comes down to whether you want to be that person or not. And I just don't. We just don't want to do that. So you ask, the value of that is the service. Okay.
Tech support. That's call the shop. Talk to Jay. He'll ask you everything under the sun. That, can help you out. He'll get it done.
So I think since, basically 2010, we were working in somebody else's product, and we won. That's when we started doing shocks. And in 2010, I think, if I remember right, we won the IMCA Stock Car points, national points. So 38 people have won national points on our product since 2010. And we are the smallest manufacturer out there.
Right.
So we are the bottom of that deal. So I feel like we've done extremely well. Okay, and here's why I say, is it good for racing? All those people want it on retail price. They never paid a dime more for that shock. So they can buy it at retail price, $300, a base valve 360. So most of them under $300 bought 4, 5, 6 shocks, went out one national points champion. So they didn't spend a lot of money to get it done. Okay, they didn't have to do all that stuff that we're doing nowadays. I've had guys that have been not happy too.
It's a
I'm
racing
sure there's
thing.
some of them out there watching.
There's a
that
racing
didn't
thing.
work for me that
Yeah.
way. But the reason it doesn't work for a lot of guys is because they don't come back. They buy something, and it either makes them better or worse, and then they buy something else.
Yeah.
Okay,
It's-
and that's that piece right there has got the ability. There's the fundamental part of the shock is fixed. So the valving may not be right, but it ain't the shock that's hurting you.
Right.
We just need to get the valving right.
Yep.
Back to that twin tube deal, that piece right there. Okay, the reason I say is it good for racing, because I feel responsible for people. Okay, so if I get you in and out of racing in 3 years, you're in and out in 3 years, and that's me that's doing it, am I good for the sport? No. This isn't teaching you how to drive. This ain't going to make you a better driver.
Right.
I do think there's a lot of wins there, but is it going to make you a better driver? Should I even care? I don't know. You tell me.
But you do care, because I've sat and talked to you. I know you care.
I do.
You do, and it's amazing to me that I can call you up. I got to go through your wife first. She usually answers the phone.
Yeah.
Tell her who I am and that I'd like to talk to you, and you'll spend an hour on the phone with me.
If I have to, yeah.
Or longer.
Yeah.
Yeah, or longer.
And if you show up at the shop, he'll get out the map and start drawing everything out and explain it to you. So there's a benefit to doing business with you, Jay. There
And
is.
if you call and she says, well, he's on the other line, Would you like to hold?
No,
Sometimes you might not want to.
I feel sorry for some of those people. I've picked that phone, I've watched
asked-
that thing blink, and I picked it up, and I'm like, hello, and they're like, hello, and I'm like, oh my goodness.
I always ask her, well, how long's he been on there? Okay, I'll call back.
I'll call later.
And you know, it goes both ways. You know, I mean, I feel like you know that I might have you know, stepped over my boundaries a little with Brian. You know, one time made him a little mad. You know, and I didn't know it at the time, but later on I thought, you know, so I try to be
Yeah,
careful what I say. You know.
Yeah, but I bet you made him
But-
think.
yeah.
Well, it didn't run him off.
No.
So,
Yeah,
I mean,
no.
you know.
No, I was just going to throw in here before we ran out of time, and I appreciate all you've done for us because I know my daughter Jess has made a few
Yeah,
trips down
yeah.
there, and you fixed our stuff while she waited, and I appreciate that.
Well, and I really enjoy working for you guys. So, you know, I mean, Brian you guys have all treated me very well.
You know, it's a shame that in this day and age, with the advent of social media, guys can get on there, or gals can get on there and say whatever. You know, we try to promote positive part of the sport. We want to drive people to the stands, you know, because without them, we're not going to stay in this game very long.
That's right.
And I think you do the same thing.
Well, I mean, I want to think I do. You know, I mean, it's like, I don't know if we see the results fast enough, but, you know, this is a racing community. Salina is a racing community. It has been for years, you know. And guys need to come out, you know, I mean, if they're watching this on the local TV or whatever, they owe it to themselves to come out and see what's going on out there because it's a neat environment. It's a good show. I mean, racing's fun.
It's a pretty good time.
Yeah, I drive up from Wellington every Friday night. I missed 3 races last year.
Really?
Yep.
I came up every Friday.
Did you really?
So-
I know
And
you
that goes
very well.
another thing, you know, every time someone needs parts, run up to them. Just call the shop. Hey, is Andy coming up? Answer's going to be yes. So I can always bring them up to you.
Yeah.
So,
You know, we're going to run out of
Yeah,
time here,
that
guys, real
works out
quickly.
good.
Andy, how'd you get involved with this?
well,
Hired him.
You hired him?
he gave me a phone call one night about 8:45 at night. Said, I heard about you. I want you to come in and talk to me. And that next morning, I started working.
Said okay. Huh?
Had no idea you'd be traveling around the country doing shows and all that
I,
other stuff.
I
huh?
definitely got a good gig going.
Guys, you've been very gracious tonight with your time. We really appreciate you driving up here. Anything else you want to get out before we end this thing and thank the rest of our
I
guests?
mean,
and
you
stuff?
know, feel free to call. You know, some people sometimes act like they don't want to bother you or whatever. I mean, you know, don't, like we've said, you know, don't get upset if you can't get in. You're going to get in, you know. I had a kid this last week, you know, kind of pop a cork, you know, and I told him, I said, hey, you know, it's okay, you know, just calm down, you know, and he was, you know, he apologized and he's like, you know what, it is okay, you know, and he said, I just got too excited, but, you know, if you need help, call. Use social media. I use Facebook to answer questions all the time, day and night.
Okay.
I'm on the phone answering questions on
So what's the best way to get a hold of you?
call the phone, 620-326-3152.
Okay.
Jay Neal on Facebook, BSB Manufacturing. My Facebook page is open 24 hours a day.
You know, and real quick, another to all the racers out there listening, even though you're not running BSB products or shocks, don't hesitate to holler at Jay because,
That's right.
I
We'll
mean,
help
he'll
you.
talk to you anyway.
And I'm telling you, find a place and get you a hold of one of these. It's loaded with information. I'm telling you, you know, fire suits and stuff like that. But these last 2 pages are probably the most important ones in this book.
And there's some, we're going to run out of time, but
We
there's
are.
some QR codes in there you can scan, and they'll take you to other information.
Okay.
So,
Guys, that's going to do it for tonight. Bobby, fantastic show. Jay and Andy, thanks so much for
Yeah,
driving
had a
up here.
blast.
Really.
Thanks for coming, guys.
Yeah, we
done it.
really
We could
appreciate
do
it.
another hour.
We probably could.
We know I could.
Well, we could go. But Again, Bob Potts, Bill Gritt, and this has been Race Talk Live TV. It is produced at Salina Media Connections by Dave Cheveria of Flatlands Media. He gets assistance from Dean Klenda and Aaron Carter. And again, tonight, the pizza and dinner was provided by Karen Gebhardt of Kansas Secured Title for all of your real estate and escrow transactions. Thanks again, guys. We will see you next month right here on Race Talk Live TV.